Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Today we're tackling something super interesting, but also, honestly, kind of confusing: the world of supplements.
Specifically, we're looking at the ones marketed towards women's health.
Right.
And to make sure we're bringing you the best info, we're using these two awesome articles.
Yeah.
One's from Everyday Health and the other one's from Healthline.
Yeah, the supplement aisle can be a bit of a minefield. It's easy to get overwhelmed.
Seriously.
But that's what we're here for. We're going to break down the science behind 7 key nutrients that are often recommended for women.
Totally.
We'll look at the benefits, any potential downsides, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better idea of whether any of these supplements deserve a spot in your routine.
Exactly. But before we get started, a friendly reminder, this is all just information, not medical advice, okay?
And of course.
We're not doctors or nutritionists or anything like that.
Yeah, always best to chat with your own healthcare provider before adding any new supplement.
For sure.
Yeah.
They can give you personalized advice, make sure it's right for you, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Consider this like a jumping off point for those conversations.
Okay, so let's start with a classic supplement practically everyone's heard of: calcium. It's like the poster child for strong bones.
It's true.
Our article said something like almost all the calcium in our bodies is stored in our bones and teeth.
Makes sense, right? They're like the calcium warehouses.
Totally. But here's the thing I didn't realize. Women actually start losing bone mass way earlier than men do.
Yeah.
The article said it can start as early as our 30s, and then after menopause, it can speed up even more.
It's true, and that's where calcium supplements come into play. They can really help maintain bone density.
Wow, I had no idea it started that young. It's like our bodies are secretly playing Jenga with our bones.
Yeah.
So how do we even know if we're getting enough calcium? Is it as simple as drinking more milk?
Well, dairy is definitely a good source, but it's not the whole story.
Okay, so there's more to it.
As we get older, our bodies might not absorb calcium as efficiently as they used to. It's like, think of it like our internal calcium processing plant starts to slow down.
Interesting analogy.
Thanks. And this is partly because of hormonal changes, especially after menopause. So if you're concerned about your bones, it's a good idea to chat with your doctor.
Makes sense. They can check your calcium levels and see if the supplement is right for you.
Exactly.
Being proactive is key. We only get one skeleton, right? All right, let's move on to another nutrient that doesn't always get the attention it deserves: vitamin D.
Right.
I used to think it was just about getting some sunshine and having strong bones, but these articles totally changed my perspective.
Yeah.
Vitamin D is apparently involved in so much more. Things like mood, immunity. It's kind of wild.
It's a real multitasker.
For real. But how much sun exposure is actually enough to keep our vitamin D levels where they need to be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It varies from person to person, depends on things like where you live, your skin tone, even just how much time you spend outside.
It's a balancing act, right? You don't want too much sun, but too little can be a problem too.
Exactly. It makes you realize how important our lifestyle choices are and how they impact our nutrient intake.
Totally.
A simple blood test can tell you where your vitamin D levels are at, and then you and your doctor can decide if you need a little boost.
Always good to have that information.
Yeah.
Speaking of essential things our bodies need, let's talk about omega-3 fatty acids. I feel like I hear about these everywhere.
They're like the superheroes of the supplement world.
I was going to say, they have a pretty impressive resume. They're good for your heart, your brain, your joints, everything.
They really do it all. Our sources talked a lot about how crucial omega-3s are for reducing the risk of heart disease, which is a major concern for everyone, but especially for women.
That's so important.
And the benefits don't stop there. Like you said, they also play a role in brain function, they can help reduce inflammation, and they even support healthy joints.
It's wild how these tiny nutrients can have such a huge impact on our overall well-being. Okay, so where do we find these magical omega-3s? Asking for a friend.
Well, fatty fish like salmon, mackerel, sardines, those are all fantastic sources. But if you're not big on seafood, you can also find omega-3s in plant-based foods like walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, and of course, there are always supplements.
So many options.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a way for everyone to get their omega-3s, whether they're a seafood lover or vegan or anything in between. Now, onto a nutrient that's often associated with pregnancy, but is actually crucial throughout our lives: folate.
You're right. Folate doesn't always get the recognition it deserves. People tend to think it's just for pregnant women, but that's not the whole story at all.
Definitely not. So why is folate so important for everyone, regardless of age or whether they're pregnant or not?
Well, think of it this way. Folate helps our bodies make DNA. which is essentially the blueprint, the instruction manual for our cells.
Wow, the instruction manual for life itself. That's pretty incredible when you think about it like that.
Isn't it? And if we don't have enough folate, our bodies can't create new cells and tissues or properly use amino acids.
So yeah, definitely not a nutrient we want to be low on.
Yeah.
What are some good sources of folate? How can we make sure we're getting enough?
Leafy green vegetables are your best bet. Spinach, kale, those are like folate superstars.
That's true.
Other good sources are lentils, beans, asparagus, avocado, lots of tasty options. And a lot of fortified foods like cereals and bread have added folate as well.
So many delicious possibilities. Honestly, just thinking about all these nutrient-packed foods is making me feel healthier already. Okay, let's move on to iron, a mineral that's super important for carrying oxygen throughout the body.
It's true. Iron is like the delivery service of our bodies, making sure that oxygen gets to where it needs to go.
Like the ultimate team player. Now, I've always heard that iron is especially important for women. Why is that?
Well, one of the main reasons is that women lose iron through menstruation,
Right.
which can put them at a higher risk of iron deficiency. Other things that can contribute are pregnancy, breastfeeding, and frequent blood donation.
It's definitely something to be mindful of. So what are some signs that someone might be low on iron?
Some common ones are feeling tired all the time, shortness of breath, pale skin, things like that.
Those are good to know. So how can we naturally boost our iron levels? Are there any specific foods we should focus on?
Absolutely. Red meat, fish, and poultry are great sources of what's called heme iron, which our bodies absorb more easily.
Okay.
You can also find iron in plant-based foods like beans, lentils, spinach, tofu. But that type non-heme iron isn't absorbed as easily. Here's a tip, though.
Yeah.
If you pair those plant-based iron sources with vitamin C, like citrus fruits or bell peppers, it can actually help your body absorb the iron better.
It's all about creating those power couples on your plate. I love it.
Exactly. And of course, if you're ever concerned about your iron levels, it's always best to talk to your doctor. They can do a quick blood test to check your iron stores.
Makes sense. It's amazing how interconnected our bodies are. Each nutrient has such a specific role to play.
It's true. It's like a finely tuned orchestra with every instrument contributing to the harmony.
I love that analogy. All right, we've covered a lot, but we still have 2 more nutrients to go. And trust me, you don't want to miss these. Up next, we're diving into the world of magnesium and lutein.
Stay tuned.
You know, one thing I was thinking about when reading these articles is how much focus there is on what we should add to our diets.
Yeah.
But they got me thinking, what about what our bodies can actually absorb? That feels like a whole other side of this conversation.
Right. It's not just about what we're eating, but how well our bodies are actually using those nutrients.
Exactly. Everyone's different, so figuring out your individual needs is key. There's no magic formula for supplements that works for everyone.
So true. It's all about finding what works best for you.
We're taking a look at magnesium and lutein, and these aren't your everyday vitamin C kind of things.
Right, exactly.
These are those kind of nutrients that often fly under the radar,
Yep.
but pack a serious punch when it comes to our health. You sent in some amazing excerpts about these.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's talk about them. We're talking about like preventing blindness, easing those pesky muscle cramps, and even upping our skin's defense against the sun. I don't know about you, but
Let's uncover those superpowers.
I'm ready for those superpowers. So, first up, magnesium. Now, this mineral, it's like the overachiever of the nutrient world, right?
Yeah.
It's involved in over 300 enzyme systems. That's got to be, what, like a third of all the enzyme systems in our bodies?
It really is. It's an amazing number. And it just goes to show how crucial magnesium is for so many different functions in the body. From how our muscles work, to how our nerves talk to each other, to regulating blood sugar. And you know what? It even plays a part in how our bodies use other essential nutrients.
Right. It's all connected. And speaking of being connected, one thing that really caught my eye was this statistic that nearly half of Americans might be deficient in magnesium.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's a lot of people walking around, maybe not even realizing that this could be contributing to some of the things they're feeling.
That's a significant portion of the population. And what's really interesting is that a lot of these deficiencies, they show up in ways we might not expect, like fatigue, muscle cramps, even anxiety. These are all things that so many of us experience.
Yeah.
But we may not automatically connect them to, oh, maybe my magnesium levels are low.
It's like we're trying to treat the symptom without really addressing the root cause, like putting a Band-Aid on a leaky faucet.
Exactly. Perfect analogy. And it really highlights why it's so important to understand these potential deficiencies. Now, you mentioned something really important before about how essential nutrients work together. Like magnesium, it plays a huge role in how our bodies can even absorb and use vitamin D.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and calcium too, right? Which is a biggie for us as women,
Yeah.
especially as we get older. So it's not just about getting enough magnesium in isolation. It's about how it works in synergy with these other nutrients to actually make sure everything's running smoothly.
It's like a team effort.
Yeah.
Magnesium's like the facilitator, helping all the other players on the field to really perform at their best. And this becomes even more important for women who are really active because,
Especially.
when you're pushing your body, whether it's at the gym or just, life in general, running around after kids or whatever it may be, your muscles are working extra hard.
Oh, tell me about it.
And they need that magnesium to recover properly.
Right. And prevent those muscle cramps that can seriously derail your workout. Okay, so for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I need to boost my magnesium, what are some of the best ways to do that? I know we've got some food sources we can talk about.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there are so many delicious foods out there that are naturally abundant in magnesium. You highlighted pumpkin seeds.
Pumpkin seeds, yeah, those are a good one.
Oh, yes, for good reason, because just 1 ounce provides almost half of your daily magnesium needs.
That's amazing. See, this is what I love. You can boost your nutrient intake, and it doesn't have to be like boring, flavorless food.
Yeah.
Pumpkin seeds on a salad, in a smoothie, or just as a snack, that's an easy win.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love it. You're speaking my language. And we can't forget about the other magnesium superstars out there. Leafy greens always make the list, right?
Always.
Almonds, even dark chocolate.
Ooh, okay.
A little treat.
I like it.
So incorporating those different foods can go a long way in helping you meet your magnesium needs.
Variety is key.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's some people listening who maybe aren't reaching for a bag of pumpkin seeds every day.
Sure.
So are there supplements that we can consider? And if so, what should we look for?
Absolutely. So a balanced diet is always the foundation, but high-quality magnesium supplements can be a great way to bridge that gap if you're concerned about your intake.
Yeah.
And actually, you've done some great research here by highlighting a couple of options.
Yes, we've got some links in the description for you guys where you can find some really good brands of different forms of magnesium, because I know it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Exactly. Some people find that certain forms are easier on their stomach, or they may be more effective for their particular needs. So it might take a little bit of experimentation to find what works best for you.
Trial and error. Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So definitely check out those links if you're interested in exploring magnesium supplements. We've done a little bit of the legwork for you, so you don't have to.
Let's dive into the world of lutein.
All right, lutein. This one's really interesting to me because it's all about protecting our vision. Which, let's be real, as someone who stares at screens probably way too much, I am all about.
Oh, same here.
And it sounds like lutein becomes even more important as we age.
Absolutely. One of the big things that lutein helps protect against is age-related macular degeneration.
Okay, so before we go any further, I need a little refresher on that. I know it's a leading cause of vision loss, which is scary enough on its own, but what's actually going on in the eye with that?
So basically, age-related macular degeneration, or AMD, it affects the macula, which is that central part of your retina, and it's responsible for that sharp central vision.
Okay.
The kind that you use to see those fine details, to read, to recognize faces, all those things that we kind of take for granted. But as we get older, that macula can become damaged, and that leads to those blurry patches in your central vision, and in severe cases, even blindness.
So it's like the bullseye of the eye, the part that's responsible for the clearest, most focused part of our vision. Okay, and how does lutein help protect that?
This is where it gets really cool. Lutein, along with a related carotenoid called zeaxanthin, acts like a pair of internal sunglasses, filtering out those harmful blue light rays.
Oh, blue light. I know it from my terrible sleep after scrolling on my phone at night.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's emitted from our phones, computers, even energy-efficient light bulbs, and while some exposure is totally normal, those excessive amounts, that's where the damage starts. It can actually damage those delicate cells in the macula, increasing your risk of AMD later on.
So lutein swoops in and absorbs those harmful rays before they can do too much damage.
Like a superhero.
That's amazing. But how does it even get to our eyes? Do we, absorb it through our eyeballs? What's happening there?
I wish it were that easy.
Right.
No, we actually get lutein through our diet. It's found in certain foods, and then it's transported to the macula, where it forms this protective layer over those sensitive cells.
So cool. So we're literally building up a natural defense system in our eyes through the foods we eat.
Exactly.
Yep.
You got it.
It really is amazing, right? Like we can actually fortify our eyes from the inside out.
It's pretty incredible.
So that brings me to my next question. What kind of foods are we talking about here? Do we all need to start like chomping on carrots like Bugs Bunny to up our lutein intake?
Well, carrots actually are a good source of beta-carotene, which our bodies then convert into vitamin A, so they're definitely a good choice for eye health overall. But when we're talking specifically about lutein, we want to put leafy greens at the top of the list.
Okay, yeah.
Things like spinach, kale, collard greens, those are your lutein superstars.
See, leafy greens are just like the MVPs of the nutrient world, it seems like. They're always showing up ready to play.
They really are. And don't underestimate egg yolks either. They're surprisingly rich in lutein.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm hearing variety is key here.
Mm.
And, this is why I love these deep dives, because I always learn something new about foods that I thought I knew, but there are always, like, hidden superpowers in there. So speaking of superpowers, I know we talked a little bit about lutein supplements earlier. Are those a good option for people who, maybe aren't as into their leafy greens or they want a little extra insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. And just like with magnesium, ideally we're getting most of our nutrients from a balanced and healthy diet. But lutein supplements can be really helpful for filling in those gaps if you're not quite there yet. And the good news is you guys have some links down in the description to some really reputable brands.
Yes, we've done the research, so you don't have to. Check those out if you're interested in learning more. Now, before we move on, I did want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier. You said that lutein works alongside another carotenoid called zeaxanthin, if I'm saying that right.
That's right. Yes.
Are they like partners in crime, like fighting the good fight together in our eyes?
I love that analogy. Yes, they really do work best together, so you'll often find them paired together in eye health supplements for that exact reason.
So it's like they enhance each other's effects.
Exactly.
Interesting. So they both help protect against that harmful blue light, but do they do it in different ways, or are they kind of doing the same thing?
They both have antioxidant properties, and they both filter blue light, but they each have what's called a slightly different absorption peak within that blue light spectrum.
Okay, so I'm not a scientist, so break that down for me a little bit. What does that mean for our eyes in a practical sense?
So basically, they work as a team, tackling those harmful rays from different angles, which ends up providing more well-rounded protection than either of them could on their own.
Okay, so teamwork makes the dream work, even on a cellular level.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on lutein and eye health, but I do have to ask about this other potential benefit that you touched on earlier. The idea that lutein might actually help protect our skin from sun damage as well.
Yeah.
How does that even work? That seems kind of crazy to me. Because you think about our eyes and you think about our skin, those seem like totally different worlds.
Right. You wouldn't necessarily put those two together. But the key here is that lutein can neutralize those free radicals we talked about earlier. And those harmful blue light rays that we're trying to protect our eyes from, they're not just in our devices.
Oh, right. They're in the sun, too.
Exactly. They actually make up a pretty significant portion of the sun's radiation.
And that's what leads to, like, wrinkles and sunspots and all those fun things.
All the things we're trying to maybe slow down a little.
Yeah, exactly.
So while we do need more research in this area, those early studies are showing that when we consume lutein, it can actually build up in our skin cells and then act almost like an internal sunscreen, absorbing some of that damaging UV radiation.
So it's like giving our skin a little extra protection from the inside out.
Exactly.
That's so cool. So are you saying if you can ditch the sunscreen now and just eat a bunch of kale?
Well, not quite.
Okay.
It's important to remember that the research is still preliminary, and we need more studies to confirm this and figure out, how much lutein we actually need to consume to see those skin benefits.
So maybe don't cancel your dermatologist appointment just yet.
Not just yet, but it's a really promising area of research, and it just goes to show how everything in our bodies is connected.
Right.
Nourishing ourselves with the right nutrients can have these ripple effects and benefits that we might not even realize.
It really is amazing how much more there is to discover about, the food we eat and how it affects us.
It's true. And I think the more we learn about those connections, the better equipped we are to really take charge of our health.
Totally. So as we wrap up our deep dive today on magnesium and lutein, is there one big takeaway you hope our listeners are walking away with?
Hey, before we move on, should we do a quick recap of the 7 supplements we've covered so far?
Sure. Good idea.
Okay, so we started with calcium, the superstar for strong bones, and those articles really emphasized how women start losing bone mass earlier than men, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and as we age, our bodies sometimes don't absorb calcium as well, especially after menopause. So supplements can be really helpful.
Totally. Then we talked about vitamin D,
Okay.
the sunshine vitamin, but it's not all about bones, right?
Nope, not at all. Our sources talked about how it's linked to our mood and our immune system too, and how lots of women might not even realize they're low on vitamin D, especially if they don't get a lot of sun.
It's a good reminder to get those levels checked. After that, we moved on to omega-3s, those heart-healthy fats found in fatty fish. The articles really highlighted their importance in preventing heart disease, a big concern for women.
And remember, they're not just good for our hearts. Omega-3s are also great for brain function, reducing inflammation, and keeping our joints healthy.
Truly the multitasker of the nutrient world. Then we dug into folate, which everyone seems to associate with pregnancy.
Which is important, but it's honestly crucial for everyone, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Exactly. Our sources explain how folate helps our bodies make DNA, the instruction manual for all our cells. Pretty amazing, right?
It really is. Without enough folate, our bodies can't make new cells or use amino acids properly.
Yeah, definitely not something to mess with. After folate, we moved on to iron. That's the one that helps carry oxygen throughout our bodies.
Right. And we talked about how iron deficiency is pretty common in women, especially because of things like periods, exercise, even pregnancy.
So important to be aware of. From iron, we moved on to magnesium, kind of the unsung hero of the mineral world, right?
Totally. It's involved in hundreds of processes in our bodies. Our sources talked about how crucial it is for our muscles, our nerves, blood sugar control, blood pressure, even helping us absorb other nutrients like calcium and vitamin D.
Wow, I didn't realize it did all that. And finally, we wrapped up with lutein, the nutrient that's like sunscreen for our eyes.
It's true. The articles talked about how lutein can help protect our eyes from the damage caused by blue light, and some studies even suggest it might have similar benefits for our skin.
2-for-1 deal. Okay, I don't know about you, but I feel like I just went back to school for a crash course on women's health and nutrition.
Me too. And for anyone who wants to learn even more, you can find the full articles from Everyday Health and Healthline linked in the episode description.
Yes, don't miss those. They're packed with info. You know, going through all this makes you realize just how much we rely on our bodies to function properly. It's pretty amazing.
It really is.
Yeah.
We often take our health for granted, but it's like anything else. If we don't maintain it, it won't run smoothly.
So true. And just like we need to fuel our cars to keep them running, we need to give our bodies the right nutrients to thrive. That's where supplements can come in handy, especially if we're not getting everything we need from food alone.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that supplements are just that, supplements. They're not a replacement for a healthy lifestyle overall.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, right? Nourishing ourselves with whole foods and supplementing where needed.
Exactly. And that balance might be different for everyone, which is why it's always best to chat with your doctor or a registered dietitian. They can help you create a personalized plan that aligns with your individual needs and goals.
It's like having a personal trainer, but for your nutrition. Okay, so we've talked about why supplements are important, but how do we actually know which ones are right for us?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. It all comes down to a bunch of different factors: your age, your health, your lifestyle, what you're already eating, the list goes on.
So it's not as simple as just grabbing whatever's on sale at the store.
I wish it were that easy. Those deals can be tempting, but it's so important to do your research when it comes to supplements.
Makes sense. So where do we even begin? What are some things to watch out for?
One of the biggest red flags is any supplement that makes these crazy claims, like promising to melt away fat overnight or cure all your problems. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Good rule of thumb for life in general, I think. What else should we look out for?
Another thing is proprietary blends. Those are mixtures of ingredients where they don't tell you the exact amount of each one.
Oh, I've seen those before. What's wrong with that?
Well, it makes it tough to know what you're putting into your body and how much.
That's a little shady.
Right. It's always best to choose supplements that list out all the ingredients and their amounts clearly on the label.
Transparency is key. Now, what about certifications? Are there any seals of approval we should look for?
Definitely. There are some really reputable organizations that test and certify supplements for quality and purity.
Which ones?
Some of the most well-known are USP, NSF, and ConsumerLab.com. Seeing those on the label can give you some peace of mind.
Good to know. So once we've narrowed down our choices, how do we actually work supplements into our routine? Is there a right way and a wrong way to take them?
Another good question. It really varies depending on the supplement. Some are best absorbed with food, others on an empty stomach.
So always check the label.
Always a good idea. And of course, if you have any doubts, don't hesitate to reach out to your doctor or a registered dietitian.
They can give you personalized advice based on your specific needs. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today about the world of women's health and nutrition, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's an exciting field, and there's always something new to learn as research evolves.
That's why it's so important to stay informed and advocate for our health.
I agree. Knowledge is power, after all. The more we understand our bodies, the better choices we can make to feel our best.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And speaking of being informed, don't forget to check out the full articles we've been discussing from Everyday Health and Healthline. You'll find the links in the episode description.
They're a treasure trove of information for anyone who wants to do a deep dive into these topics.
Totally. And before we wrap things up, I have one final thought-provoking question for you to ponder. We've talked a lot about supplements that women might need, but what if we could personalize nutrition even further?
Like how?
Imagine a world where we could get totally personalized nutrition recommendations, like based on our DNA or our gut microbiome or even how stressed we are.
That would be incredible. It'd be like having a personalized roadmap for our bodies, you know?
Exactly. And while we're not quite there yet, it's amazing to think about what the future holds. Okay, I think we've covered a ton today, so it's probably time to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good. Yeah.
But this is just the beginning of the conversation, right? So keep learning, keep asking questions, talk to your doctor.
And most importantly, listen to your body.
Yes. Your body knows best. And don't forget about those amazing in-depth articles from Everyday Health and Healthline. We've got the links in our episode description.
Definitely check those out if you want to learn even more about all of this.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into women's health. Until next time.
See you later.